This is a podcast for spiritual downloads, star seeds, light workers, and authenticity. Spiritual awareness is advised. Welcome to the 1111 podcast. So glad to have you here. Let's join with a deep breath in, and this time let's hold that breath at the top and then release. Are you ready? Let's try it. Deep breath in, hold at the top, keep holding, and release. You made it through another week. You're here. Congratulations. And if you woke up feeling imbalanced, overwhelmed, just feeling like who did it and why, know that it's okay. There is a full moon lurking outside your window right now, so it's all good. Now, I might be a little biased when I say this, but I've noticed that the Libra moons are not as intense. I mean, they're intense because they're still the full moon, but there tends to be a little bit of a peace about it because it's really shaking things that are in balance. And just remember, everything that happens is truly for your good. It's all about how we choose to interpret it. So if you have a topic potentially that you want to hear covered, let me know what that is. Let me know if you'd like to collaborate, if you'd like to be a guest or nominate someone to be a guest. Reach out, let me know. Go ahead and share, comment, leave a like, leave a comment as well. If you're catching this on YouTube, if you're watching this on a podcast platform, the star rating does great works as well. Leave a review, it's all appreciated so much. Donations you can leave through CashApp as well if you'd like to do that. And if there's anything in particular that's really happening in this moment that is really coming up to the surface, and maybe you need some assistance to navigate through that, reach out. I do provide donation-based mental health therapy, spiritual counseling, dream interpretations, holistic healing, and all that can be found in the links below through my Full Circle Counseling Service. And if you want to be a part of the team that I'm building, if you have a gift, a talent, or you just want to make some waves, you can reach out and let me know how you'd like to contribute and how you'd like to be your own person, be your own emperor and empresses. That's what we're doing here. So, continuing with the series, The 7 Deadly Sins. Moving right on to greed. And, I think that it's important to recognize all of these categories have light and shadow to them. And all these categories are really what we make them mean. Meaning is, as Teal says, the self-destruction button. What meaning do we assign to these things? And we're going to get into all that. And all of these different avenues that we have, because we are multidimensional people. I could just hear and feel and sense this shadow of, well, you have all of these platforms, music, counseling, podcasting. Leave some for the rest of us. That's so greedy. The thing about it is there's always plenty for everyone. So if you have a gift or talent and you feel like the market is oversaturated, I promise you it's not, because no one can do what you can do. That's why the best gift you can give to the world is yourself. And even if there's been books written about it, even if there's been podcasts done on it, they'll never do it the way you could. So the secret sauce is always going to be you. You are the most valuable ingredient in this equation. And, there's always room for more. And it's the shadow side of greed that actually leads to lack, that there isn't enough for everyone. So you have to keep it all for yourself. And so we're going to, of course, dive into the psychological understanding of that, my interpretation of it. We'll check in, of course, with Webster and Google and AI and all those great people out there. People who think they're people, right? We'll check in with all of those entities and see what their definitions of greed are and how we can incorporate them into our own understanding. So if you have not already known, in addition to all the things I just mentioned, there is also a merch store. If you want to get some paraphernalia, get some gear, you can definitely get that. I noticed this hasn't been in my bio description, so I'm going to find where I left that link and add it back. I typically release these on Sundays. Now, if you've subscribed to the YouTube channel, if you haven't, there's time, go ahead and do that, because there's an episode that is being premiered right now as we speak. It might have already ended by now, by the time you're listening to this, but if you want to catch those premieres as they are being released, make sure you turn on the bell notification. Make sure you're subscribed, and make sure you are checking in with the YouTube channel quite frequently, because there are musical playlists on there you can listen to that are continually being added to, and episodes are being posted more frequently right now. So make sure you are engaged with that, have your notifications on for that, and catch them as they air live, because there's nothing, I think, nothing better than catching something live. And maybe you have been just stuck in the house or just away from society from one reason or another, and you haven't really had a chance to connect to the live entertainment that's out there. Well, I have good news for you, because the artist that we know and love, Mary J. Wanna, will be putting on a live virtual concert next Sunday, 4/20. Can we get it? That was a round of applause, kind of, sort of. We're not going to say what it actually sounded like. But you know what? We're going to keep going with it, because we are talking about the 7 deadly sins. But marijuana is not a sin. For those who may be confused about that, marijuana is a plant that we can harvest and grow and expand our spiritual awakening. And so, we are all different stages, and we are all embodiments of the young self, the immature self, the real self, the mature version, all of these things, the ego, they're all a part of us. So we should never neglect or suppress any part of that, because it needs to be expressed so that we can fully embody this journey. So I've said it before, but when I refer to the 7 deadly sins, the word sin in this connotation means anything that keeps us away from love. And as it turns out, these 7 deadly sins do exactly that. And we're going to discuss how that manifests, how that shows up, and why these are considered deadly sins, in my opinion. Of course, inform your own and add to the conversation of what you think, why it resonates that these would be things that may not be the best for the human experience, or the spirit, I should say. The human loves it, right? The flesh is like, yay, more sin. But the spirit that we host this body in, it can cause an imbalance. Now, I'm very grateful that something I learned in my upbringing was everything in moderation. It was never don't do something. It was always moderation. You can cuss, you can drink, you can smoke, and do whatever you want. Just do it in moderation. So really, when we say the 7 deadly sins, is when it goes into an imbalanced state. When it goes into a detrimental state for yourself, your well-being, for the world, for others around you, etc. So all that to say, to finish what I was saying, is to make sure you get your tickets for the 4/20 concert. And the links are below to get your ticket. Make sure you attend this 4/20 event, or just do something fun for yourself. It's also going to be Easter Sunday, so if you celebrate these pagan traditions, if you celebrate, just, be safe, be well, take care of all that. But the universe is so always guiding us to what we need. And the more we pay attention to that, the more we can really recognize that. And so I recently watched a movie from the 1970s. Shout out to the 1970s. And watched this movie, and lo and behold, there was a tune that mentions the word greed. Does anybody know what movie I'm referring to before I spill the beans? Before I tell you what movie it is, anybody know what movie it was? Any guesses? Okay, well, let's find out after this.
Oompa, loompa, doompa-dee-doo, I've got a perfect puzzle for you. Oompa, loompa, doompa-dee-dee, if you are wise, you'll listen to me.
What do you get when you guzzle down sweets?
Eating as much as an elephant eats.
What are you at, getting terribly fat?
What do you think will come of that? I don't like the look of it. Oompa, loompa, doompa-dee-da. If you're not greedy, you will go far. You will live in happiness too. Likely Oompa, loompa, doompa-dee-doo. Doompa-dee-doo.
That was the original Willy Wonka. I just gotta say, Gene Wilder did an amazing job as Willy Wonka, my favorite Willy Wonka of all time. And I recently watched that, and I really feel very seen and such a resonance with the character Charlie. That's very much how I was as a child. And it's nice to see that representation outside of oneself. And, it's very seen even now because that inner child still resides within each and every one of us. So when we think about greed, we may think about people who are greedy for food, are greedy for power, are greedy for women and cars and land and all of these things. So what is greed exactly? What is greed? Well, we're going to check good old Google now. So let's see. What is greed? Let's go with the AI overview. Greed is an excessive and selfish desire for something, particularly wealth or possessions, often to the point of moral failing. Wow. Okay. So, moral failing. We see a lot of moral failing that's masquerade as moral righteousness. And when you have a group or society that determines what moral failing means or does not mean, that's when you get into a corrupt culture. So when we go back, way back, and we see greed birthed in the hearts of people, it's what causes people to start wars. It's what causes people to occupy other countries. It's what causes people to steal from their neighbor. These are the type of moral failings that they're referring to when they say this. Now, I think we can agree those are not necessarily the best ways to interact, behave, treat each other. And it definitely keeps us out of love. But what causes greed? Like, what happened here? And I think greed comes from the same vibration of lack. When we are operating in lack or fear, we are completely opposite of love, and we cannot even entertain or even embrace the state of love when we are operating from lack or fear or any of those vibrations, because it's an opposition. It repels it. It pushes it away. And so greed is often in the same vibration of lack. That's why I feel that many people who are really rich materially are often very poor spiritually. And people who are often poor materially are often rich spiritually. So again, people who are rich in this 3D world are often void and have no understanding of spirituality. And people who are often poor are seen as less than in this society, in this world, in this realm. They often have such a connection with the divine that you wouldn't even imagine. And they are often taken care of because of that connection. And when we add in moral failing, that's a judgment of good, right, and bad. But this is just referring to the soul connection to our higher selves, to our higher power. And greed blocks it. But the interesting thing is it is in the same vibration of lack. So often people who are very rich are often very poor. People who are very poor are often very poor. They're rich in spirit and poor at the same time. So they're kind of one and the same. It's opposite traumas. So you may have a child who grew up very spoiled and very entitled. So of course they think everything belongs to them. They don't want to share. They don't want another sibling. They can get really violent if you try to make them do these things. And they can become really corrupt also. Then on the other hand, you might have someone who was very abandoned. Someone who grew up in poverty. Someone who grew up in not having all their needs met. They could have had a tumultuous childhood from circumstances beyond their control. They might have lost everything in a tragedy or a natural disaster. They may have a deep wound of abandonment. And so their trauma causes them to not want to hold on to anything good because of the fear of loss. So they may push away love also because they either feel not deserving of it, not worthy of it, or the fear of anything good I have will be taken from me, or will be lost, or I won't be able to keep, so I don't even want it. And so that is the same opposite vibration, or opposite end, but it still can lead to greed. And so what I mean by all of that is we have these trauma points that happen to us, and there's a spectrum of trauma. Everyone is traumatized. Every single one of us has experienced trauma at some point in our life, and if we haven't, we will. And that's not a threat. It's not even a promise. That's a guarantee. At some point, we will experience trauma, and it's how we cope with it that develops resistance. Or, wow, I meant to say resilience, but resistance came out. So there's that. And I think that that's the energy to work through when we're dealing with greed, or when we're dealing with the 7 deadly sins, is to find where is the resistance to either acknowledging that we all have these traits, or the resistance to the ways that we've experienced the wounding of these things. So when we find that, then we can work through the energy. So one thing I think is a common thing of greed, and that kind of shows on Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, is the greed for food. Now, greed, I think the greed for food is a very good example of what's happening physically when we use greed, or when we operate from greed. And also, it gives a physical representation of what happens spiritually when we are greedy for likes, or for acknowledgement, or validation, or whatever thing that we feel missing within us. And it turns into a vacancy, turns into a place of greed, or can turn into that. And when we look at food, if you overeat, you will gain weight. If you overeat, you may get sick. If you overeat, you may develop health issues. all of that transfers over to the spirit as well. That's why being greedy is actually not a virtual. It's not a virtue, because it is detrimental to your body. It's detrimental to your health. If you're operating with greed, you're operating with lack. You're saying there's not enough food for everyone. I want it all. I'm going to keep it all. It belongs to me. You're operating with that mindset. And you're doing a disservice not only to everyone else around you, but to yourself as well. And I think that's something that Western culture really struggles with. And some of you know this. Some of you have heard me mention this on this platform. But I spent part of my childhood growing up in another country. I spent my time in the East, in Japan to be exact. And one of the things that happened, this memory has been coming up a lot, so I'm just going to share it. One thing that happened when we first got there, maybe a month within the time of being there, we went to one of like the oldest traditional places. And you know, food is such an important part of culture, and it's so important to honor and respect people's cultures. And you know, I was a very, very, very picky eater, and I guess I still kind of can be, but I was a very picky eater back then. And we went to this very traditional Japanese place to receive a meal. And you know, it's very traditional, so we're all sitting on the floor with our, you know, just, I don't even want to say everything, but I'm just going to say, like, the reason I don't want to say everything is because I don't want to misquote or misguide the memory, as ironic as it may sound. But there's a lot from that time that was just amazing. I'll just put it like that. And this was one of those times where I'm in this great presence of this beautiful traditional Japanese culture, and here I am, a child, very picky eater, coming from America, right? Just not good stuff. And so, you know, we're in this place, and the only utensils we have are chopsticks. You have to eat with a chopstick. And I'm, you know, this 7-year-old who's like, this is not going to work for me. Like, I need something else, you know? So I'm like, I need a fork. Someone, can I get a fork, you know? And looking back on it, it's very cringe, you know? I feel like if you don't look back at some of the events in your life and don't cringe a little, that just shows how much growth you've had if you can cringe, you know? So it's a little cringy. Like, I felt terrible for my parentals. I'm sure they're like, oh, this damn kid. Like what? And so, you know, I'm like, they're looking for a fork. They're like searching. I think they went in the back and made me one. So they come out with a little baby fork for me. And they're just looking at me like, ah, these Americans, these selfish freaking Americans. So entitled. Come to our land asking for a fork. No, get out. So yeah, I just think that in that moment though, what I learned was the portions of food they give you are very different than the portions you receive here in America. And so coming back to America, you know, as like a preteen, I'm like, what is going on here? I'm like having a culture shock, because I'm like, why is everyone supersizing their food? What is happening here? Like, I just need a little grain of rice and I'm good. Like, what are y'all doing? And you know, in America we have such an unhealthy relationship with greed and such an unhealthy relationship with food that it does breed mental disorders. It does breed psychological disorders, you know, bulimia, anorexia, to name a few, but there are more that happen. And we don't have a good relationship with food, and we don't have a good relationship with nature. We don't have a good relationship with ourselves. And this is part of the greed of our society. And so I've noticed that people feel they need more. I need more. Give me more food. Give me the buffet. Give me whatever. And it's because they're eating empty calories. Oftentimes, they're not eating nutritious foods. They're eating wasteful foods that will just turn into waste anyway. And it's just like, it's kind of gross, but it's like, what are people on right now? Sometimes I just feel like, what is happening? As a kid, I definitely felt that. And what I've noticed is that in other cultures, there is sustenance to their food. It's harvest with love. It's harvest and cultivated. And, you know, we would do field trips where we would learn how to cultivate the earth and things like that, and really like do all these things. Of course, this was in, like I said, a whole different country. We don't necessarily do that here. And I'm always grateful for that experience, because it not only shaped me, but it helped me understand different ways of life and have much more appreciation for things in a way that I think we all want to get back to. And so I never really had an issue necessarily with being greedy for food, you know, and I feel like the root of it is emptiness. That people who struggle with greed is because if you cannot be satiated, if there's never enough, that's the core wound, is I'm not enough. There's not enough. I'm not enough. And often people who struggle with greed have such a fear of being overtaken. They have a fear of dominance. They have a fear of being less than. I mean, even billionaires will lose billions of dollars in one day. So they always have this, I would imagine, this subconscious belief of, I have to make sure I make do, which means I need more. I mean, I have to take from other people. I have to swindle, I have to lie, cheat, steal, whatever I got to do to make sure I don't go under. Because either they know what that's like or they fear to know what that's like. I think most of the time they do know what that's like. And this is not to say people with wealth who are rich are evil or bad. Again, money is not the problem. And you can check out the episode I did about the root of all evil. Money is not the problem. The problem is, where is our heart at? Where is our mind? Where is our soul in all of this? Because power is not bad or wrong. Power in the wrong hands, now that is what becomes bad and wrong. Irresponsible people with power leads to corruption. You know, I had a conversation with my manager recently, and I had, you know, I have people who want to be a part of this podcast, and I interview with people and all these things, and interview with someone, and I'm like, man, like, I was talking to my manager about it. We meet, you know, and have these kind of conversations, and I was telling him how, you know, I just went through this process with someone to see if they'd be a good match, and telling him like, yeah, you know, this person has like a bunch of followers and they have a great crowd and all of this, and I'm like, but I'm not sure. And he's like, well, it could put you on the map. It might be something to do. And I looked at him and I was like, no, it's not something for me to do. And I just told him, like, even if someone could assist me in one realm as far as gaining visibility or notoriety or whatever, if they don't have the heart, it's not worth it. And he was kind of like, I don't know, could help. I'm like, I don't know either, what you talking about? And you know, he kind of after I said a little bit more, he kind of just looked at me like, wow, like, and that's what we need, is people who have integrity as leaders, to not just cave in because something looks good. The question is it? We need people who will say no to the evils that are gonna triumph in this war. Wow, that's deep. A lot of Freudian slips on this recording here, but things are not written in stone. We have power based on what we do, And we've been taught to believe that we're powerless. And if we believe that, then yes, we are powerless. But finding how to take your power back. So, as I mentioned, people who may be physically poor, materialistically impoverished, homeless, desolate, often have a rich soul because they actually live in a spiritual abundance because their needs are taken care of. Just as the bird flies, the sparrow's needs are taken care of without a worry because they have a connection to the divine. So understand that these two energies exist, and these reside within each and every one of us. It's about how we taper it, how we move through these energies. Like for me, I think my greed would come in with I don't feel greedy with needing all the food or needing all the girls or needing all the anything. But for me, I think if I could have all the music, give me all the music in the world right now, I think I'd be good. I'd be good. But see, even that doesn't deplete anyone else from having music because we have all these streaming services, we have all of these things. But what happens is when we live in a society that operates from denial, that operates from illusion, and keeps people out of reality, and the underbelly starts to show when these things happen as the ruptures continue in the age of Aquarius and transformations happen, more awareness is happening. But as we know, with more light, it casts a bigger shadow. So you have to ask, what else is going on? What's going on behind the scenes? What's going on behind the curtain? Because everything is not as it seems. And so I think that those of us who may be listening right now, we just experienced a pandemic of 2020. And we saw how people responded to that. Because with all of these, quote, sins, it really activates the survival mechanism, which is something that greed can also activate. And so we saw people fighting over toilet paper. We saw people go into selfish mode of, what about me? Is there going to be enough for me? We saw people do this. And we've seen people for a long while preparing for Judgment Day. Preparing. I'm going to get my bunker and get all my canned goods and get all the things so I can be ready. And that can be a good thing, to be ready. I do think it's important to have foresight. It's important to be ready, to stay ready so you don't have to get ready, as they say. It's important that to understand that that can be a survival skill, which is important. But we're not living in the age of survival of the fittest anymore. And the survival of the fittest is actually more in the spirit now. Whose spirit can survive? Because we're not operating in the same realm that we used to. And people don't necessarily realize that yet. They still are trying to use old methodologies, old wineskins and new wineskins, and it's going to burst. And people are going to be like, oh crap. And so we have to understand that spiritual wealth is actually the highest form, because when you focus on that, everything else happens. Everything else is taken care of. But when you only focus on one sliver of it, the material, not saying that material is important as well. It's not bad. It's definitely important. But it's not the highest. It's at the bottom of the scale, which you do have to build the bottom of the pyramid to get to the top. So you do have to make sure that you have those survival skills, which can be a light attribute in the most positive form of greed, can cultivate survival skills. But when it becomes detrimental is when it's at the detriment of other people. Survival skills in a healthy society would have been to say, let's ration out these toilet papers. Why would we even need to? That should be common sense, but it's not common. So we have to think about survival and think about the evaluation of everyone surviving, not just ourselves and not just the people we quote care about, but everyone, if we are going to actually walk that path. The other light side of it can be, it can create ambition. If you are someone who always wants more for yourself, you're going to get more. meaning you're going to be willing to do more. You're going to do self-improvement to get whatever type of relationship you want. You're going to work on whatever goals you have to get the kind of career you want. You're going to put in the time, effort, dedication, and resilient work that is needed. There we go, it came out that time. You're going to do whatever is needed to make sure you get what you desire. And if you put in the work, you will reap the benefits. So that can be a positive attribute of greed. If you're not okay with the status quo, if you're not just comfortable in your own oasis of sitting in your comfort zone, and you always strive for more, that can be a beneficial factor, a positive light side. Now we know the shadow sides of greed. Most of us see it. They can lead to competition, competitive nature at all costs. People who are willing to kill other people to get whatever it is they desire. People willing to sell their own souls to get whatever they want, you know. And we see that because we see that obviously in music and Hollywood and, you know, sports and all of that. And even the, you know, little conversation I had with a coworker, you know, of sell your soul to get more gain. And I'm like, I can't do that. That's not even in my DNA, bro. And you can also lead to just being very superficial. So you don't have deep interpersonal connections with people because you are not even in connection with yourself. And you can become someone who objectifies people, who sees them as, how can I use them? What can I get out of this? And that, of course, is detrimental to your growth, because you're not able to love someone if the only value they bring to you is what they give to you or how they help you survive or whatever it is. Now, the flip side of that, the light side of that, is learning how to resource people. And what that means is knowing, okay, these are going to be my club friends, these are going to be my spiritual friends, these are going to be my deep poetic friends. And I'm not even saying you should categorize your life in that way. Often people do, but I think there is a way to find a integrated way of all of that, because you don't have to block off parts of yourself to exist. I think that being your true authentic self in all shapes, forms, and situations really helps. But just to kind of modify it for the sake of this conversation, having that be where you resource people, where you say, okay, I know I can talk to this person about logistical things and talk about logic, and I know I can talk to this person about spiritual things. I guess that's more of what I'm getting at, is knowing what strengths people bring to your life. And everyone is not going to, no one has the full package. That's why we need tribe around us. Not even your romantic partner. They should not be your only source of dependability and your only source of comfort and, you know, friendship and all of that. That's important to have in a counterpart in a romantic situation. But if that's all it is, then it becomes unhealthy, because it can lead to codependence and narcissism and all of that stuff. But making sure that your tribe, that you have different people around you and like-minded people around you, and you know where you can go for what situation. Like when I have these talks with my manager, I'm not talking about, you know, emotions, because I know that person doesn't care and cannot handle emotions. So I'm not going to talk about something that would just lead to me feeling rejected. I'm not going to do that. But I will talk about, you know, whatever that resonates. So you want to find how to resource certain things. But some other things that greed can lead to, and it kind of mentioned it in the AI overview. How do you guys feel about AI, by the way? Anyway, leave it in the chat, in the comment section. But is possessiveness. Greed can lead to possessiveness. So when we are possessive, now a really unhealthy, untrained eye can think, oh, that guy or that girl is so possessive, they really love that person or whatever, oh, that's so romantic. But possession also comes with a shade of control. It also comes with a shade of again, being objectified, inhumane treatment as well, because you're not free. And that's actually the opposite of love. Love is about appreciation. It's about saying, how can I admire, appreciate this person, be grateful for this person, and honor who they are without needing to change them, without needing to coerce them, without needing to control them. But how can I just appreciate the divine through them? Doesn't mean I'm going to agree with everything, but I appreciate the fact that they want to reflect this, or that they operate this way, and it's different than I may operate, or is similar, or however it is. But finding an appreciation for someone gives them freedom, and finding healthy ownership of someone to say, I appreciate you, and at the same time you are mine, and therefore I'm going to protect you, therefore I'm going to love you, therefore I'm going to let you be you. Possession now is just like treating a person or anything like a car, or like an inanimate object, which is why people who can be greedy can collect a lot of inanimate objects. And they can have a distortion with that, where they humanize the inanimate object and they demonize or criticize or treat the humans like they're inhumane and treat them like robots. You know that. You guys know that feeling. We see that in the workplace. We see that in groups of people. We see that all the time. And so people would rather spend more time washing their car or spending time with an inanimate object than spending time with someone who can actually talk to them. And unfortunately, the children suffer because of this, and a lot of people suffer because oftentimes we are not connected to ourselves, so therefore we cannot connect to another. The other thing that can be a shadow of greed is focusing too much on the future or too much on the past. So as I mentioned, people who are so focused on, I got to make sure I, keep all of these wheels spinning. I got to make sure all my investments are profitable and everything is going well. They're not focusing on what is actually going well, and nor are they focusing on what's happening in their present moment. And when you live with that fear of loss or abandonment or neglect or whatever the case may be, it robs you of the present moment, because instead of enjoying the moment, you're wondering, when is it going to end? And then you're not fully embraced and enamored and experiencing that present moment. And then before you know it, it is gone. And now it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that, yeah, it's gone now. And, now you have to lament on it and focus now invertedly on the past of, oh, I wish I had really spent more time basking in that present moment and embracing all the senses that were happening in that moment. And everything is a lesson, so I'm not saying this to make you feel bad or wrong. We all have an experience where that has happened. But it's to say, let's learn from those experiences so that way we can be more present with the people we love, with ourselves, with nature, and really embrace and squeeze all of the experience that's happening and just enjoy that experience. So that way when that experience ends, as everything inevitably does, when it ends, you feel at peace and not clinging or not, absent or like feeling regret even. But there will be a sense of accomplishment. There will be a sense of enjoyment, and that is how you satiate the feeling of greed. To find what makes you feel empty. To find where the void is within you and why you feel you can never have enough. It's not that you can never have enough, it's that you're not appreciating what you do have. So it's finding how can you be content. And that doesn't mean don't strive to get more, but you have to ask yourself, do you really need 17,000 cars? Do you really need all of these women, all of these men, all of these partners? And that again is not to shade anyone who does, because everyone has their own path. And if it works for you, it works for you. But the question to really ask is it working for you? I saw a quote that said, cheating is a rich man's sport. If you can't take care of all of your wives and all of your children, then you have no business getting into that. If you can, by all means, have tons of kids, have tons of partners, whatever it is. And no one can tell you what is right or wrong for you. So please know that I'm definitely not telling you what's right or wrong for you. I don't want anyone to leave this world not feeling free. That's what I want. I'm not here to tell you what you can do, what you can't do, what you will do, what you won't do. Does not matter to me. What matters to me is that you feel free and content and comfortable and at ease with yourself with whatever you're doing. And if you don't, that you have the strength to make the changes that are necessary for you. It's not going to impact anyone else. Well, I guess it will impact the people around you and the world at large, but only if it's to your benefit. So I appreciate you guys being here. Go ahead, press that like button, press that share, send this message to people you think may benefit from it. Leave a comment, leave a star, review. All of these things help the channel, and I'm always grateful for your guys' input, for your guys' feedback, all of it. Go ahead and get your 420 tickets before they sell out. I didn't post a lot, so please get your 420 tickets. Make sure you attend the event next weekend. It's going to be lit. So I appreciate you guys, and I hope that you all are well. Take care. Until next time.